Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of This Week in the Bush League, hosted by the Chief and the Champ. I'm the Chief, owner of the Bantam Roosters, and my wife and I are watching our 2-year-old grandson, and he is winning.
And I am the Champ, Jamie Falun, owner of the Space Otters, and the reason why he's the Chief and not the Champ is that I've beaten the Bantam Roosters 9 out of the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Raj.
Yep, and we just...
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
We just talked about people needing to show more empathy, and I guess... I guess you were talking about other people showing more empathy, not yourself. How are you making out?
I'm doing good. We had some wicked storms here.
Yeah.
Let's see, what day was that? Tuesday, and we lost power for about 7 hours. I was ready to head for nap number 2 during the power outage when it came back on, but I've been doing good in retirement until there's no electricity. That's when all bets are off.
Yeah, it's mostly the internet. Once the internet goes down, that's where the problem is. Like I can live without lights. It's just the internet. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. So we moved about 6-8 months ago. We live right outside of Lancaster City, but it's somewhat of a wooded area behind our house. And
Okay.
Christy and I found a 4.5-foot snake skin.
Ooh, no. Oh, hell no.
Yeah. So we called someone, and they said it's an eastern rat snake. So
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know, but it's not venomous. But I imagine that thing would hurt if it bit you, and it's giant. So
Man.
yeah. So that's why I don't like yard work. Now I got to deal with this thing. Yeah.
Ay.
I know. So, for those of you, today is a Friday edition. We have a guest on today who's a former owner of the Tyconians, and his name was also the Warthogs, Mike Alexander. Mike, how you doing today?
Yay.
Hey guys, I'm doing well. Just sitting in my home office doing my thing. So anticipating this podcast.
Now you were the only ones other than Pete who schedules with us and doesn't show up, but you're the only one that couldn't make it on the weekends. What are you busy with on quarantines during the weekends?
Well, I just have so much going on at the house.
Okay.
I decided to use the quarantine to get 17 yards of mulch delivered about a month and a half ago, and I'm down to the last few wheelbarrow pulls. So it's been good. I usually do a decent amount of work, but I wouldn't have normally done that. But I thought that would be good stuff to do. Plus with the good weather, I'm still involved in some of my shooting competition type things, which have been pretty much halted, but I'm still getting out and sneaking in a couple things here and there with that. So I'd say I've been pretty active, actually, is reasonably active on the weekends, whether it's home doing slug and mulch around or gone somewhere else and doing activities that I do. And as the weather gets good, you tend to do more of that.
Yeah.
So let me just jump in here for a second. So, Mike, you actually like landscaping?
I don't mind it. I do certain things, and then I haven't cut my lawn since the month after we moved here 22 years ago. So I have somebody cutting the lawn for all those years, and I play around with this or that, and then when it comes to stuff I don't want to do, and I have people to do it. So I mix and match. So.
I was going to ask you because I know Raj doesn't like to do any landscaping, and knowing that you're an instructor, I was hoping that maybe you can give him a few pointers. But it sounds like it's a pick and choose type of thing.
Well, I got a chance to listen to about the rat snake, and so Roger, you have no fear. They have no. They have no real, nothing for you. Okay, so don't worry about the rat snake.
Well,
all right.
I feel pretty good. I went out and bought a 3-foot statue of St. Patrick and stuck it out there, so that should take care of him.
Yeah, that'll work. Those kind of things are good deterrents. If you added on to the name rat and called it rattler snake, then you'd have a different problem.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I would be moving. So, hey,
Yeah.
Mike, have you listened to any of our stuff yet or no?
No, I never even knew about it. I mean, I've been so, just been so not involved, obviously, since I left, and I don't chat with Bill too much, and text here and there, and when he visits. So really, no, I didn't even know. But I'm not surprised you guys are doing this. You guys have always did groundbreaking things with fantasy league baseball stuff. You guys are pioneers, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, we're pioneers, but if we were actually pioneers, we'd be starving, because I think there's like 9 people that listen to us, but that's fine. I mean, we enjoy it every week.
There's room for growth.
So, a lot of our owners know you. Some of them don't. So, why don't you provide the listeners a little background on yourself, former team names, how many years you were in the league, family, job, where you live, etc.
Yeah. Well, as you said in the introduction, started out as the Tyconians, and I thought back on that because I had to refresh my memory on a lot of this, because it's been since 2008. It's amazing. It's been 12 years since I left or been in the league, and Jamie reminded me of the years. I probably would have been 80% correct on when I was an owner, but Jamie basically told me I was 2001 to 2008. So 2001 was basically 3 years after we moved back here from St. Louis.
Okay.
So we moved back here in 1998. So we've been here in Chester Springs for 22 years. It doesn't surprise me when I thought back, Tyconians. I worked for Tyco at the time. Tyco was this huge conglomerate that was buying companies left and right, and we were the talk of Wall Street and all that. And I was a young marketing sales manager type guy in that. So that's what I named the first. That was the first name. So I'm not surprised at that. But it wasn't long after that, in 2004, that I really left the corporate world and started my own company, and partnered up with a few other people to start my own company as a manufacturer's rep for major pieces of equipment that get sold into the pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities. So that's been 15. It's been since really 2004.
Okay.
That I've been building that. So when the last 10, 12, 13 years, that's what I've been focused on a lot. But that's also freed me up to continue my other hobby pursuits, like my shooting competitions and instruction to law enforcement and that kind of thing that I do on the side, and that continues today. I don't really seek to grow it, but it just it comes in spurts and goes. So, 2001 was when I got in, and I think that really came about from, I was away for almost 10 years, stay away, living in St. Louis. Got married out there, and then got the opportunity with Tyco to come back to the East Coast. So we just decided to move back to near where I grew up. Mary's from Evansville, Indiana. But so getting back, you kind of rekindle with people. Sure. Not that I ever lost track, but still, you kind of feel like you're back, and hey, let's see people. And that's where the Bush League thing obviously was like, hey, I'll join, and these guys are serious, and then I can let's join. And I think I held a lot of the draft. Well, I know we had a lot of the drafts at my house. And
yep.
So yeah, that was as to why I got in. That's definitely why. I remember the feeling coming back, and even 2 or 3 years after coming back, you're still feeling like, hey, I'm reconnecting with everybody that I hadn't talked to as much when you're living, and you take it for granted. So that's kind of the genesis of it. And then getting my butt pounded for many years, and getting involved with a lot of different other things that I could see where several years later I just said, hey guys, man, I want to sell my franchise for a major amount of money and get out.
Yeah, and so, I can't remember who took over your franchise, but I think someone took it over. It might have been Bry. It might have been my brother.
Know, but I still have the big check, man. I still have the check that I got for that franchise. So.
That's what paid for all that mulch.
Yeah. That and the dime got me a Wawa cup of coffee and a shorty. But nevertheless, I got paid for it. I think it was your brother. Now, I mean, for some reason, I remember that. I think your brother slipped right in there, and he took over. So the league, I didn't. No, in other words, nobody missed me.
That's not true. Yeah, because I probably haven't seen it since then. I don't think I've seen it in 12 years. Have we seen each other?
I don't know. No, I think I may have. I think we may have been somewhere in the last some years. Maybe in the last many years. But yeah, you're right. I mean, effectively, as far as a group, no, absolutely, you're right.
You were in the league for about 8 years or so, but you've known a lot of these guys for a long time, and I remember you being around even before you're in the league. What are some of your best memories of the Bush League?
Well, for me, and if I go back to 2001 when I joined, reconnecting with people soon after you move back from being away for 10 years in another city, the best memories really are the draft days. For me, and they were at the house. I had them at my house, not because they were at my house, but everybody comes and the people and I've been longtime friends with Bill. And he's one of my better friends as a teenager, and of course even to this day. But so that was a connection, and I figured, well, it's a way to stay up with Bill and some other people. Like you, we wrestled together and played baseball, and it's just there was a connection, obviously from school. But Bill was kind of the really the glue for me on that. Is that gave me a chance to see Bill more because he's been away from the area but not far. But so it was cool to do that, and I really enjoyed that and the bantering, the memories like that, and I really stunk at it. I sucked at draft day. Because I was surrounded by freaking pros, who really, are pros, and so I was less than that. I can tell you, I was below average. But the memories are really for me getting together, and I knew it at the time, and to this day that stuff even becomes more important as you get older. So
yeah, no, that's true. And I would classify you as a big sports fan. Do you still follow baseball?
I do, not near as much as before. I mean, again, I don't want to diss baseball, but baseball is, it's the same game, which I highly respect it. I still love baseball. Matter of fact, I still wish I would have been a guy that's 56 years old now that had a career in baseball. I still do. I still envision fielding ground balls and throwing hard over the first base, But as far as watching baseball and following it like you guys do, I'm nowhere near. I'm not in that league. But again, I developed, over the years, developed a lot of. I've had a lot of hobbies and stuff, and it just takes away. It just takes away from that. But I can't be. I'm not in the league with you guys when it comes to following baseball. I don't like that we don't have it. I mean, that's the problem. With today, when you don't have things like you wish you had them. So I think I probably will watch it more when it comes back. But the answer is no. I don't follow it hard.
Okay.
I know what's going on as a sports fan because again, when you're a sports fan, you're listening to sports talk radio. You just know what's going on, but never to the extent that you guys do.
So, you mentioned Bill a couple times, and Bill had talked about you. I think it was last week or a week before we had him on, because we had talked about the American Legion team that you guys played on your last year. You won a county title.
Yeah.
So. One of the questions that Jamie queued up is the catch, in quotations, the catch Bill made against Phoenixville. I guess it was at a high school game. Do you recall that?
And that was absolutely I recall because I watched the ball fly and from as a third baseman, when there's some, and I was always played a deep third because I trusted my arm, but so I was playing deep third at John Doc Kennedy Stadium in Phoenixville. We all know it.
Yep.
And it's on it's on a corner in a town setting, as you all know. It's still there. And they had no fence. They had nothing, just a big piece of field. And I forget, was it Gary Sapinski who hit that ball? I mean, I could almost picture it. I remember the swing. I remember saying, that ball is going to end up in Kimberton. And as I did many times when a good hitter would hit a shot over my head, my neck snaps back and I turn around and all I see is Bill's head down running, and he's just like when he would steal bases, his head was down the way he ran. Some people run upright. Bill had his head down. Kind of like an antelope, they sink their head down and they just go. And all I see, it wasn't that long, you hear the crack of the aluminum and head snaps around, and Bill he must have already been in 3 or 4 strides, which for him was full afterburners moment. And I'm watching and I'm like, I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, well, this ball's, and there's I don't know how many guys were on, but I think I remember, 6 or 8 base runners just running around the bases, and I'm going, oh, Jesus God. And next thing you know, the ball, we got to watch, and I said, he's really after this ball. And next thing you know, he puts his glove up and he catches it. And I'm like, holy smokes. And he would take a few steps and he'd always throw it to me. And, he threw it, but I think it had 3 or 4 cutoff men before it got to me. But that's how far down. That's how far, because he wasn't restricted by a fence, and that was the worst thing for that guy, because that guy legitimately hit probably a 380-yard ball. Bill caught up to it. I mean, it should have been over a fence. Any decent field with a fence, the ball would have been a home run, and Bill would have had to just stop running. But that was pretty cool. I can still picture him running with his head down and his white shoes. All I saw was these white things going up and down, and I'm like, and he's tucking his right arm in, and he sees his glove, then he just sticks his right arm up and boom, right in his glove. And I thought it was either Gary Sapinski or my cousin Bob Karkoska. One of those two hit that ball. I remember. So if you ask me if I remember the catch, I think I just described to you that yes, I do.
So yeah, I remember that field, and I guess it was my senior year where we got off the bus and they had put up a snow fence, and it was odd, and we thought, well, all right, now they got a fence up here. But then we saw Piazza taking batting practice, and you're like, all right, that's why they put the damn fence up. Because of this kid.
Right. Yeah, you guys had the pleasure of playing against him. We didn't. So, but I'll tell you, they had good players club. When I was a senior. When I was a senior, they had some stud players, and they could hit, and they didn't have a problem getting around on any of the fastballs that our pitchers were throwing. So I was extremely active in those games. Bill was too.
Do you remember who threw that pitch?
I don't. I do not. But I just know that it wasn't more than those balls weren't going in there at any more than about 74 miles an hour. So, and they had guys that could get around on the ball. So
yeah, that's funny. I asked Bill last week, the last time we had him on, if he ever feared anybody throwing him out, stealing a base, and he said there was a guy from Boyertown, but I don't even remember him ever being thrown out. Do you?
I don't. It's hard to imagine that maybe one time he wasn't, but no, I don't think so. I know I've never seen it, and it does. You would have thought that we would remember the moment, remember the catch. Yeah. So I mean, it was basically when Bill was stealing bases, it was like stealing candy from a baby, really. I mean, because there weren't, there weren't that many catchers at a high school level. You don't run into that many catchers that can rocket a ball down on a major league diamond. You just don't see it. The only time I ever saw it in my playing career was after high school, when I was playing in the Perky Twilight League, and I played with some good. That was the best baseball players I ever played with and against. And we had a catcher, Butch Denzi, and he was always being scouted. And that was the first time and only time I ever played with a catcher that could rocket the ball the way a pro does. And so, no, nobody threw Bill out. And if it was, it was because Bill slipped and fell or had a slip or something. There was just nobody could throw him out. I mean, I don't remember it if it happened.
Yeah. So. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah. So, Mike, see, that's the reason why we wanted you on. And I was kidding around with you before the show, but saying that it was a highly anticipated show. But this is the reason, is because you can tell these kind of stories. And I remember you telling me this. Obviously I wasn't around for the catch. And Bill had mentioned it to me, that it got a little bit of a blurb in the paper the next day. But just how you describe those kind of things is why we knew that you were going to be great on this show.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let's jump back a little bit in time, because one of the things that we did as a league was go on baseball trips to different stadiums. And in 1996, you were living out in the Lou, as they call it, out in St. Louis. And,
yep.
You and Mary had graciously hosted a cookout at your place. And I think that there was a day game that we had gone to, so we had some beers there. And I want to say that you had probably purchased 2 cases of Busch beer for the cookout, which obviously were I think we might have left 1 or 2. But tell me what you remember from that event.
Well, I remember some happy campers. I think I went to the game. Did I go to that game, or did I go to one?
I want to say you met us. I want to say you met us there. Yeah.
Yeah, I met you there, and then I went home or whatever. And I think you guys. Tom. He was hell bent because he always had in every city. He always had a bar or two that he heard about. You have to go to, and it was always some smelly, bar somewhere. And Tom would find them out. It was probably a place that I didn't even know about. And I think you guys wanted to go down by the brewery in South St. Louis there. So I think that's what happened. I went home because I wanted to make sure everything was okay for this onslaught arrival. And so that's what I think happened. But I know I would have went to the game or games. I think you guys did what, 2? You did the whole weekend.
And Friday, Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I went to both games, or at least Saturdays. And
you did.
So yeah. So you guys did your thing, and then you turned the burners up even more on the alcohol consumption, and then you made your way to my place, probably in a state that I didn't see you guys in. You guys were in baseball form having the beers, but then after that it was get serious time, and so you did that, and then you made your way out to West County, which, if you remember, straight west. We call that West County. It was still St. Louis County where we lived, but it was the equivalent of probably suburbs of Conshohocken and that area, to Philly. So you guys made your way out to West County, and we lived in a little area called Wildwood near Chesterfield, and that was our first home. We got married 2 years prior to that, and we owned the home for 2 years before you guys got there. So needless to say, it was all spiffed up and all nice and done, because I had done my spring cleaning and all that. We had a nice house out there. It was pretty nice. It's a pretty cool place. And so, but I was having a plumbing problem in the kitchen, and you guys got there, and we proceeded to have a cookout. And I'll tell you, it was pretty lively. It was rather lively, and especially one of the owners, Stan, he seemed to especially enjoy the libations that you guys had in South St. Louis. And Tom had had his eyes red, and he was tuned up pretty good. And Bill was happy, and Jamie was happy, and it was, and I figured this. But but I really had this plumbing problem in the kitchen, and I'm like, and when we were well along into this endeavor here, I said, I can't do anything about this, but I'll mention it to Stan, and not for any other reason, to just mention it to him, and just as a joke, and he decided he was going to take on this project while he was feeling pretty good, let's say. And so next thing you know, he's got a wrench in his hand that I provided, and a rag and all this, and I had a part for him, and lo and behold, with half of his brain tied behind his back, he proceeded to fix my plumbing problem in my kitchen, and that was a pretty good memory. It's not non-baseball related. I mean, the baseball stuff is boring and it's very predictable. It's this unpredictable stuff that make for the events and the stories, especially with an organization like that. You can always predict. We're going to go to the baseball game. We're going to drink, and we're going to have hamburgers and hot dogs, and we're going to talk about baseball. Well, that's boring. It's the stuff it's that thing that happened that was the most memorable and the most fun and laughable when you look back. Yeah, that was funny as hell. He could barely stand, but he performed his plumbing. He performed his plumbing duties very well enough that when I moved home, he was my plumber until the day he decided he didn't want to be a plumber anymore. And I was pissed. He would come to the house with his handwritten invoices with the carbon copies, and he did several plumbing jobs here. And then he'd tell me the one day he's done. I said, "You can't be done. You're my plumber, for God's sake." And he's like, "Schmitty," he said, I'm not going to be a plumber anymore. I said, "Well, I got another job for you, so you're going to be a plumber for at least another day." So that was interesting. But that was a good trip because St. Louis is very near and dear to the Saladon Tart, and of course I lived there and I knew my way around by the time you guys got there, and it was pretty cool. That was the most memorable trip, and not, I think I took a couple of trips but that was the most memorable trip. But it was a trip that I didn't have to go on, and it was before I was even part of the league. But I think we went to Milwaukee. That was pretty cool. I stayed in a room with Pete at Milwaukee that we went on. And where else did we go? I can't.
You were in Cincinnati. You were in Cincinnati and Miami.
That's right. We went to Cincinnati. Miami was good, but I remember Milwaukee. Yeah. So those were, again, I'd say the highlight of those. There might be, you guys might have some better memories because your head's in it all the time, and my head's been out of it for a while. But again, it's being with a group of guys, that whole being together thing is really the best part about it. But my God, could you guys consume some beverage? I've never, as you both know, I'm just not a beer drinker. I don't hate it. I don't have that taste bud for it. And you guys can just go, man. And Tom can go and you don't know whether he's had a case or one beer. Well said. He looks the same. I mean, you could say, "Hey, that guy. Hey, Mike, would you believe that guy just drank a case of beer over the last 4 or 5 hours?" I'd say no. But if he hadn't drank one, and you asked me the same question, I'd say no. He has. Now, Bill, on the other hand, and Bill and Roger, and and even you, James, to some extent, and you guys get pretty happy, and Bill gets out of his skin, when he has a few. It's a good way to get to know Bill if you don't know him as a complex guy. Just get about 8 beers in him, and you'll get to know Bill a little bit. So, but that's
Mike. Those are some hilarious stories. Because I do remember us going to your place. You and Mary graciously hosted. We had a great time. I think we actually even played some basketball. I think you moved the hoop down so we could try and dunk, which was never a good idea. Yeah. We had time to burn some of the alcohol off.
we had the side entry garage with that hoop on it, and yeah. So, and I think I want to say, you know, not that she didn't care. She knew what was coming, and she knew. I mean, she knew you and Bill, and you know, she knew Bill, of course, is the best man at my wedding. But I think she disappeared partway through that. I think she took off and went somewhere.
That's just exercising good judgment, Mike. And listen, on behalf of the Bush League, if we had done any harm, I hope we're forgiven all these years later. So.
Oh, yeah. I just, you know, it all came out in the house inspection when we sold it in 1998. So, you know, all that stuff came out and said, "What's this from?" Well, you know, yeah. Well, if you want me to tell the story, I will. But if you want me to just fix it, I'll just fix it, and then you can still buy the house.
So the question that begs here: did it add to the price of the house, or did it take away from the price of the house, selling price?
Didn't hurt it at all. As a matter of fact, you know, that street had a lot of homes of the type and they had the type of people in it. There was a decent amount bought and sold, even during the time that we lived there, which was only 4 years or 4.5 years. And when we sold the house, we got by far the most than anybody had gotten for a house. You know, they were all very similar on that street. So they thanked us on the way out because we kept the way we fixed the property up and did certain things. We got a good amount of money for it. So I can safely say the Bush League visit did not tarnish the reputation of the neighborhood nor the property value. So there.
I thought I remember that as part of your listing that you had some sort of note that said plumbing completed by Stan Almoyer Plumbing.
Yeah, custom plumbing work.
Custom plumbing.
yeah. Again, he proved his bones with me. I knew Stan was a plumber, but obviously I would have never used him because I hadn't lived my early adult life. Was in St. Louis for 10 years. I didn't own a home until I went to St. Louis. So Stan, like I said, with 2/3 of his brain tied behind his back from certain beverage, was able to perform a complete repair and replacement of delicate parts that you had to, hold in those big, short, stubby, strong, callous hands of his. I don't know where he got the dexterity from to handle these parts, again, with 2/3 of his brain and muscle, definite muscle inhibiting to be able to do that. And so when I got home, I said, Mary, if he did that out there, certainly without any beverage, he should be able to do some good work here. And he did. So.
Oh, boy. Oh, I hope Stan listens to this. This is great. Hey, let me take you in a little bit different direction, because one of the discussions that we had whenever we were on either Bush League trips or playing wiffle ball, you and Bill, and I, of course myself, we love the Three Stooges. And we'd always get into these debates with others that may not have liked the Stooges as much. And so my first question for you is, who is the best Stooge?
Shemp.
Okay. I would absolutely agree with that. Any reason for that?
No, I mean, it's hard. It's so hard to explain. And you might know. I mean, Shemp Curly is the obvious one, right? But you have to go much deeper into the weeds with Three Stooges to understand Shemp's small, subtle things that he does. Again, Curly is obvious, and I don't dislike any of them. But Curly is the obvious one to even a non-Stooge watcher and somebody who just knows about the Three Stooges. The first thing they do is go woo woo woo, So that, but Shemp's subtleties, and there's only certain people you can talk to about this because they have no idea. But Shemp is definitely, the way his face and just his mannerisms are just, and they're just stupid funny. I mean, stupid funny. And Curly didn't have that. Even though they were brothers, I mean, Curly he didn't have the subtleties. Shemp has the subtleties. I mean, with his voice inflection.
What you're saying, Mike, is for the intellectual Stooges viewers that they would pick Shemp over Curly. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think anybody could argue with me if I was making that point. Yeah.
So let's see if we can tie this all together here. What was the best Stooge episode of all time?
Well, it's hard to pick one, but there are some that stand out. There's two, so I'm going to cheat and say two. Plumbing We Will Go and Spook.
So the reason why I say tie this all together is because of all the plumbing issues on a Plumbing We Will Go, and then having Stan out there doing your plumbing. I just thought this would kind of tie everything together. So that's perfect.
Yeah, and I would say that without telling that story about Stan. It's just, and you got to remember, Plumbing We Will Go. They did two versions of that, Shemp and Curly. So yeah, but Spooks is the other one. Oh my God! And again, I could talk to Bill or John Dory about it, and they know exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
What about the wiffle ball that we used to play? Do you have any favorite moments or funny moments that you remember?
Well, yeah, because first of all, for those who don't know and those 10,000 followers who will listen to this. We would play. Bill invented this game. You and Bill invented the game at your house, and it was about 70 feet from the mound to the home plate. It was a long throw, so you had to really get used to that. But it started out with playing, on hot summer days, and you guys had the game figured out with how everything went with how you scored points and how you scored runs and everything. So I got involved in that. I don't know how many people did outside of you and Bill. You and Bill had an epic. But our teenage years, again, in July, in hot summer days, it had to be, I think the prerequisite was it had to be at least 90 degrees, but at least 70% humidity to play.
On blacktop, right?
Yeah, on blacktop, because we were playing baseball and we didn't want to mess our arms up, so we had the bright idea that just because it's hot out, we'll never pull a muscle, and we never did because we were young. We were young and limber, but I need to tell you that was a game, man. That was a serious game, and there were very few people that could mix into that game. I felt like I could play a little bit. I got to know the length of the throw for the pitch, and highlights were I did beat Bill maybe twice, maybe three times. That's it in a bunch of games that we played. I think I may have won 2 games. And the other highlights, I did hit a few dingers off of Bill, which was just almost impossible to even make contact with his throat, the way he threw, and the way he got down real low, and his ball looked like it was going to dig 3 feet into the macadam, and then it would suddenly not hit the macadam and come and just hit the bottom of the net, and it was a strike, of course. Anything that hit the net was a strike. And I managed to win, I think maybe twice. I want to say I couldn't imagine I won any more than 2, but I remember winning at least 1, so maybe it was 1 or 2. And I remember just closing my eyes and swinging it hard at a few pitches, and I forget what the home run was. Was it over the wires? I think
it was over the wire. Near the road.
Yeah, I managed to hit a few, and Bill was very competitive, and I was too, but he won the lion's share, and the pitching was just incredible. And I learned, I got him out a few times. I learned how to throw some benders, from that distance. I want to say that distance was at least 35 feet, was it? It's a long way to throw a wiffle ball hard and be accurate.
Yeah. You know what, Mike? Your description of that was in the front on my parents' driveway. There were some good times out there. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that to the attention.
Matter of fact, it wasn't too long ago. I say too long ago. Within the last many months, I had to cut through, and I came down the hill, and I genuflected at the driveway.
Nice.
And I did, because you have to put the brakes on anyway, or by the time you get to the Salindongs, you'd be going 100 miles an hour if you didn't use your brakes. So you're using them anyway, and I just pumped them a little harder, and I probably got down to about 4 miles an hour, and I just kind of looked over, and I just kind of said, "Oh Jesus, there's the driveway," and so yeah.
You kind of want to play Frank Sinatra's "There Used to Be a Ballpark" here when you go by there. Hey, we actually have another round. It's called lightning round questions, but we're not going to do these lightning rounds because you've given some really good answers here. But I have like 4 or 5 questions that I want to ask you, on various topics. But knowing you, because you knew Bill so well, I knew you fairly well growing up, and I know that you played football over at Norchester, then you played in high school. Obviously, you played baseball through coming up, and then through Legion in high school. You and Bill played together, and you also wrestled. As you mentioned, you also wrestled with Raj too, and you were good in all 3 sports. You weren't a big guy, but you played much bigger than your physical stature. What was your greatest personal sports moment, Mike?
Probably, if it's an individual moment, it's always going to be wrestling, right? So an individual moment. There were just a couple. I mean, I beat a couple of kids from Pottstown. I don't know how, but they were better than me, and they went on to be state medalists. And I beat a guy that in my senior year. And it was pretty dramatic, just because I almost pinned him, and it was a pretty big move from standing, and he was good. I mean, he went, and I think he was a junior. I was a senior, but he went on to he was really good as a junior, and I didn't know if I had a shot I always thought I had a shot to beat certain people, and there's others that it's going to be tough road, and that's just the way wrestling is. You have to get reality real fast in wrestling, because it'll come to you whether or not you want it, because you can't hide behind a team or other people, and it's just different that way. So you kind of knew where you stood, and I didn't stand up too well with him going into it, and it was a home match, and I beat him, and it was, it was the only time anybody ever talked anything about, hey, man, Mike beat Robert Douglas and blah, blah, blah. And, and that was cool. It was in the paper and all that. And, but the other moment is winning that Chester County League, those epic battles with Westchester in the Legion, and then having Don Specht with Ralph Gorneman, those 2 tycoons of Berks County, those 2 guys, because Brad played on the team, and those guys coming down after the game and congratulating us, and we were all, like we won the World Series, and him inviting us for a workout round robin tournament that we got suckered into going up to Boyertown. We got our asses kicked, before they went on to win the World Series, at home. They had the greatest Legion team that was probably ever assembled in the country. And we go up and said, we'll go up and play them. And we just got our ass kicked like 2 or 3 games in a row. And then we came home with our tails between our legs. But that was a good moment to win that, and a wrestling moment. And football was good, too. There were a couple great moments in that when I was part of a Chestmont champion team as a junior. So those are moments. But individual moments, definitely with the wrestling. Baseball was fine. Baseball, you ask for one, but there's always, when you're a multi-sport athlete, you have a few. And baseball, I had a good game, the opening game of my senior year against Great Valley. For some stupid reason, I made a couple epic plays at third base, and there was a picture that one of the photographers from the Mercury took, and it's me diving, catching a ball on the line, and I got up and threw the dude out from about 15 feet behind the third base bag, directly behind the bag.
Wow.
And they took a picture, and I still have the damn thing. My next door neighbor worked at the paper, and he brought the what they call the negative home, and it's like on heavier paper, and it was a huge picture, and I'm just dove out. I had a really good game. It's probably it was downhill from that point on, but I made all kinds of stupid plays at third that day as a senior. So those are, as a high school athlete, those are good. I mean, for other guys, they're winning state championships in wrestling. I mean, those are much higher level achievements, but so that was it. Yeah.
Excellent. So one of the things we've asked all of our owners, what's popular in baseball now is walk-up music when they're coming to bat. So a different spin on this would be, as you are leaving the Bush League, what would your walkout song be?
It would have to be, just because of me, the way I am, it would have to be Frank Sinatra. I did it my way.
Very nice. Very nice. Favorite Bush League trip? We've been talking about a whole bunch, but...
They were all, I remember them being similar. To me, I think I want to say the favorite when we had a good time in Milwaukee, and when I stayed with Pete. Pete was a riot to room with. So yeah, I think the Milwaukee trip stood out. As far as the trip that I went on, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And when you were at the draft table, who did you think the smartest person at the table was?
Well, I thought about this. Not that I thought who was the smartest. I knew who the smartest ones were, which was very scary for me because I wasn't one of them. So I have to say it was definitely you and Bill. It was Jamie and Bill. Because I just knew that the depth of what they put into it was just, it was way above average and way beyond what I was doing, and I was pretty sure way beyond what everybody else was doing. Although everybody was way above me, but if I tiered it up, if I had to tier it up, I would say Jamie Bill, the Jamie Bill tandem. And then I don't know. It's definitely followed by the Rogers and the Petes of the world, because those guys, they really were into it. They knew players, that stuff about players. So I would say there wasn't much separation between Jamie, Bill, Pete, Roger. I would say that.
Hey, you know what? And I appreciate that. And next time I see you at the pub, I'll have Mr. Owens give you a free beer. How's that?
Well, there you go. I mean, for saying that, I should get something. No, that's the truth. I don't think, like in any high-level activity, whether it's a sport, sports, and there's not much separation between the top tier, So I don't say that to diss anybody else, but I want to say, there's very little daylight between those four.
Excellent. And last question for you. Now that we're all kind of quarantined here, and you have any recommendations in terms of what you're watching and what others might want to watch based upon those recommendations?
Well, we're coming out gladly. I don't know what baseball's doing. I mean, the NBA seems to be getting attention, and I'll probably watch some of that. I mean, because we're all hurting. I'm really looking forward to watching golf on Saturday. On Sunday, they're playing the Colonial down in Texas. I watched the last those events that they had with Peyton Manning and Tiger Woods, and then they had the match the week before that with Rory McIlroy. So I'm really into golf. I always loved watching golf, even when I was a baseball player. But I don't know. I recommend people just kind of look forward to any of the sports that are open. I mean, golf's going to be on. If you're a real sports fan, maybe you peek at it. And I've always paid attention to race car driving too. So I've watched a little bit of a couple of NASCAR races. It's hard to watch them in full, but I pay attention to what's going on there. So I've always had a varied view. So anything that comes on, I'm probably gonna take a pretty good peek at. I'm listening to a lot of sports talk radio on the weekend because I'm doing working outside, and I have my Bluetooth speaker wherever I am, and I have Ray Didinger and Roger, you remember you guys know the morning guys on the weekend, yeah. Ray Didinger and Glenn McNow. I mean, I've been listening to a ton of that while I'm doing this, and boy, you can really catch up. I recommend, even before this stuff starts, listen to some sports talk radio while you're doing something else. You can't just sit there and listen to it. You've got to, and I'm always occupied with something. So during these landscaping escapades, I mean, I've been have my earbuds in, and I'm just listening, and I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot of stuff that I didn't realize, what the talks are with the NBA and the baseball owners and the baseball association, which looks like it just keeps breaking down, and all the and then they, so all that stuff is really. I listen to it anyway in normal times, but I might miss weeks of it. I might miss 2-3 weekends of even turning it on. But I've caught every single show, Saturday and Sunday, and even in the evening drives if I'm out and about during the day. But on the weekends, I haven't missed one of those shows in 3 months, 2.5 months.
That's excellent, Mike. And if I may make a recommendation for you, you may not learn anything, but But if you want to have a little bit of feel good and a look back, listen to this podcast.
well, that's what. Well, I want when we off air, write me an email that
I will.
tells me how to
send it to you.
On.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where to go. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Mike. You've been as advertised. You've been spectacular in all this. We're gonna have to make sure that at some point we all get together again. I think the last time I saw you was probably 2 years ago at Bolger's place, which was a howl. That was a great time. So hey, I wanted to thank you for jumping on, and I think Rod, you may want you just to, if you want to listen in to the rest of the podcast, because we have about maybe another 10 minutes on baseball topics. But if not, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, Mike.
Well, I really appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and when we had Bill on a week ago or so, he had mentioned that he thought we knew each other from playing baseball, but I told him that I knew you from wrestling, and I think it was my sophomore year was my first year, and you were a senior, and I told these guys the story that I played basketball in junior high school, and then Howie used to tell me, it's like, basketball's stupid. Why don't you just come out for wrestling? So I did.
We had a good. We had a good time in the wrestling room. I mean, I'll say this before I go. Roger and I, Roger's a little guy. I wasn't big, but I was bigger than he was. And we would just go at it, just freaking smack each other around. And he'd come up. I mean, he was, look, when you're in high school and you're a senior and somebody's a sophomore, you at that time, I'm not saying it now, but at that time you consider he's just a punk, right? Well, Roger
he's still a punk.
Roger had the guts, he'd come up and he'd just kind of look at you, and then he'd like tap me in the side of the head or something, and then we would just start throwing each other around and stuff, and not hurting each other, but Roger would do that kind of crap, and I'm like, what the hell? And he would like trash talk and stuff, and I'd be like, "Damn, man!" So that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
I do have good memories of that, even though it was just 1 year, and I always had memories of Howie, who's probably one of my. Someone asked me a couple of years ago the best coach I ever had, and he was probably the best coach I ever had. I just loved playing for the guy. Yeah, and walking as a 10th grader, not knowing anything about wrestling, and walking out as a senior with a winning record, that guy was the best coach I ever had.
How he thought anybody could be a wrestler. Yeah. He was dead wrong about it, but he would like if he would see Bill and and have a class with Bill, and hey Bill, you want to be a wrestler? And Bill would look at him like he grew a third ear, but no, Howie was that way. Like everybody can be a state champion. So I guess that's what made him endearing like that, because he just didn't think anybody couldn't do something, and that's the way he lived his life.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I liked him. I liked playing for him.
He is.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, man. Yep. So
I saw him at his wife's. Yeah. Well, that's cool, Raj.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about some baseball topics. Jamie, I got some couple history things here. 1948. June 5th, Richie Ashburn of the Phillies hit safely for the 23rd straight game, setting a National League rookie record for 23 consecutive games. Do you know who has the National League record now? Do you remember?
I do not. Who is it?
Benito Santiago holds the National League record with 34 set in 1987. I think Jerome Walton pushed that a little bit as well, but I think Santiago holds the record. And then this was kind of crazy. In 1974, so Oakland, Reggie Jackson and Bill North get in a clubhouse fight. Ray Fosse tries to break it up, and he suffers a crushed disc in his neck. This ended that guy's career. And if you remember 4 years earlier, Ray Fosse got run over in the All-Star game by Pete Rose in the 12th inning. So I don't know if you know anything about Ray Fosse, but he was a highly touted catcher coming up. In
that guy just ran into some, and I guess a pun intended, he ran into some bad luck wherever he went. But one thing that if I can just interject here, there is actually, I think I told you this. I'm not sure if it's a 30 for 30 special or an ESPN special, but they talk about the A's of the 1970s, and we've talked about this before, narrated by MC Hammer, who was the bat boy at that time. So if you have a chance, take a look at that. It's really good.
Yeah.
And they talk about Reggie Jackson and Bill North.
Oh, and that fight, yeah, a lot of characters on that team, and that was in the early '70s, where a lot of teams still had no facial hair rules, and those guys had all kinds of stuff going on. The pork chops, the Raleigh fingers, the full beards, and that was quite the team. And then with those uniforms, they had to be the brightest uniforms anyone ever wore. Right?
You know what? They still wear those from time to time.
Yeah, and it's cool.
Yeah,
when
the yellow socks.
Yeah, the yellow sanitary socks. Yeah, of course that's not even a thing anymore. Sanitary socks, which is something that we talked about in the past. And then I wanted to get into the owners, Major League Players Association. So the owners rejected a player's proposal this week: 114 games plus expanded playoffs. And they haven't come back with a counter. If you remember earlier, not earlier in the month, back in May, the Players Union rejected an 82-game scheduled proposal by the owners in May. And I think what it comes down to is that players want to get as many games in as possible because they're getting prorated salaries. Do you think we're somewhat close if they're at least talking?
I think it almost has to be, right? Because if you're going to try and get a half season in and you want to have a little bit of a late spring training, early summer training, it's got to be shortly. So I'm hoping that within the next week or so we're going to know, because this is going to impact our draft. I mean, we've kind of set a tentative date of June 27th, but that's predicated upon the league starting on July 4th weekend or something like that. So I think we're going to find a lot more this week. I think push is going to come to shove this week.
One of the things the owners, they backed off on the further reducing salaries because of no fans. So they backed that off. I think they're in agreement for the prorated salaries based on games, but some of the owners have floated out 50, 60 game schedule. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like it. You and I talked about it. Is that represents what, 60 games over a normal 162 game season? That's like a 38%, something like that of the season. I don't think that gives you any indication of a true champion. It almost becomes a bit of a mockery at that point. And say, what is the point? I'd like to see a minimum, assuming it's safe. I'd like to see a minimum of at least 80 games. How about you?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. 80 games seems reasonable. I think they played close to 80 games in 81 it was 81 when they went on strike. I think they might have played 90.
Yeah.
And they haven't had a strike. Well, I guess they played 80 games, a little bit more than 80 games in 95. Right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the number was. Yeah, but it wasn't obviously close to a full season.
Well, the decisions are going to have to come down real fast here, or else you won't have 80.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be impossible.
Yeah, because they need to get spun up here. They need to work it out probably by the next 10 to 15 days at the latest. We're going to have another season without baseball. The other thing that was in the news, and this guy can't stay out of his own way, is Len Dykstra. So... last year, Ron Darling comes out with that book, I'm not sure how I feel about guys writing books and then saying crazy things about their teammates. I think that breaks the union here, of what a locker room is, But anyway, so Darling writes the book, and he had said about Dykstra used to. Racial slurs, especially against Oil Camp Boyd in the World Series. So Dykstra takes him to court for defamation. And I'm not going to read the whole statement by the judge who threw it out, but a snippet is in the book has not exposed Dykstra to any further public contempt, ridicule, aversion, or disgrace, or evil opinion of him in the minds of right-thinking persons. So he's basically saying,
boy.
hey, Lenny, you're a freaking ding-dong now. Ron Darling didn't make you any bigger of a ding-dong than you already are. So, again, Dykstra, if you know a little bit about his days after playing are a bit crazy. Do you know anything about like what he's done?
No, but it sounds like he should be on some sort of reality show with Jose Canseco.
Jose Canseco's normal compared to this guy. Yeah, this guy.
He went to jail for some SEC violations years ago.
Yeah, right. So he was an investor at some point, and I'm thinking, who the hell's investing money with Len Dykstra? Like,
No, he got hooked up with he got hooked up with a few people in New York, and he was big money, man. He was private jets, limos, and all that. I mean, he had a lot of money.
He did
from it, and then he blew it, and then he got in trouble, obviously. So he went to jail.
Yeah, and this guy's completely off the rails, and it was. I'm glad that the judge threw that out. I mean, like that's a ridiculous lawsuit. Even though I disagree with Darling writing stuff like that in a book, but anyway, that's where we're at right now. Len Dykstra's in the front pages of baseball news. And the other thing I was going to ask you, Jamie, you have an annual Kentucky Derby party, correct?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Well, you know the Belmont is racing this month.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's taking place. Do you know the date? Later this week or later this month?
It looks like June 20th.
Okay. Is it with fans or without fans?
I can't tell right now. Although that's out on Long Island, right? So I imagine it's probably without fans.
It's without fans.
It's without.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So at least they'll get it going, and I think the Derby rescheduled for September, and I'm not sure what Pimlico did yet, if they've done anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Derby's scheduled for that first weekend in September 5th. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to get past all this and get back to some normalcy.
Yeah, and I feel bad for, usually a quarantine, when the news, it affects, talks about school and jobs, but, it does affect a lot of people who have vices because there's no gambling right now. So that's a big hit. That's a large business, right? That's being hit.
It is.
Maybe they got stimulus checks. I don't know if the gamblers got stimulus checks.
Well, maybe they can do. Actually, one of the things I heard is Vegas is opening up this week. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things they're going to try and do to make Vegas a little bit safer, they're just going to have like drive-through windows where you just give your gambling losses to the casinos and you can just keep going.
It certainly makes it more efficient, right?
Yeah. Maybe get a free drink at the end of the at the end of the checkout window.
Right. Here's your receipt for your losses and your watered down gin and tonic. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so next week.
All right, my friend.
Next week we do not have a guest lined up, right? But
no, we don't. But if any of the owners have any ideas, please text Roger or I, email us, let us know questions, concerns, topics, that type of thing. Because we're getting pretty close to hopefully the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and Mike, we really thank you for coming on. Looking forward to getting together once everything starts breaking, and maybe next year we can all have a mulch party. We can come over and help you spread that 17 yards of mulch.
Sit back and watch you guys do it with some beverages in hand. So yeah,
and we'll ask Sam to join us too for that.
Absolutely, I might just come up with a little plumbing job for him. Tell him to get his rusty wrenches out. So yeah.
All
right.
right.
I enjoyed it too. Thanks. Good catching up with you guys, and good luck with the hopefully the baseball stuff starts, and then that means you guys start, and we'll get together at some point.
Thanks,
Mike.
All right, Jamie, have a good week.
Care, man.
I'll take us out.
Yeah.
Take us out, Raj. Stay safe.